Okay, so the primary purpose of this YouTube video is to get you ready for the quiz. Uh, start from the beginning of macro. Make sure you start at the beginning of your notes. Macro is primarily concerned about, measuring things in the aggregate. Okay, aggregate means total or entire. Know the definition of GDP. Know what GDP stands for, gross domestic product. And know that, the definition of GDP is the value, okay, how much something's worth, not just the quantity, of the goods and services produced, so they have to be made, within the country. So nothing that's produced outside of the United States is considered part of our GDP. Also, the term real, make sure you know what real means. You don't have to know, just the general idea means we're taking into account price level changes or inflation, right? So the real, in real terms, Babe Ruth's salary in 1927 was 100,000. In today's dollars, it's worth like 2 million or something like that. Okay, so nominal is just the number, right? Real means we're taking into account changes. All right, so a person making $50,000 in 1970, in real terms, is pretty wealthy compared to somebody making $50,000 today. Okay, everything comes back to this graph. All right, absolutely critical that you know that aggregate demand consists of consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports. Know your determinants of each. You'll never have to regurgitate stuff back to me, okay, but you have to apply. All right, so, and if any of these increase, that means aggregate demand increases, okay, causing expansion, which in general is a good thing, okay. So let's say the stock market goes up in value. That increases people's wealth, okay. Or interest rates get lowered, okay. That's gonna help both consumption and investment and help aggregate demand. Or let's say there's lower income taxes. That's gonna help consumption. More government spending. Remember, government spending is just a decision to spend more or less by the government. There's really no budgetary considerations, although there should be. Remember with net exports, that a weak dollar is good for net exports. Kind of the opposite of what you'd think, but just remember that weak dollar, good for exports. Strong dollar is bad. Okay, and global prosperity, we want other countries to be doing well, so they'll buy our stuff. Of all of these, investment is the best thing that can happen to an economy overall, just because essentially not only do you get that addition to GDP, but that investment's going to lead to more jobs, growth in the economy, and also an increase in aggregate supply as well. Okay, so I tend to not focus on investment as a shifter of aggregate demand because it also shifts aggregate supply. All right. Increase in aggregate demand is expansion or demand pull inflation. Okay. Decrease in aggregate demand, bad. Okay. Recession or contraction. And remember, however real GDP goes, it brings with it employment, income, and output. Your job, how much money you make, and your ability to buy stuff. It's just a way to remember those things. These things all just kind of move together, okay? Don't worry about price level when thinking about employment, income, and output, okay? All right, as far as aggregate supply shifts, okay, make sure you know supply side economics, Reaganomics, increase in aggregate supply. What are the things that can lead to that? Lower cost of oil and labor, new technology is the best thing, okay, because there's, it's new, it's exciting, there's just growth, and it's helping to keep the price level down, inspiring innovation. And then the government involved ones, 3 and 4 in your notes. Corporate taxes or subsidies. Taxes are bad for aggregate supply, subsidies are good. And then government regulations. Joe Biden has put in place a bunch of regulations already. All right. And then natural disasters are bad. So, you know, I'm not going to do both graphs for the shifts. Remember, this is the best of both worlds. Okay, price level goes down, real GDP increases. And this is the situation where incomes go up and price levels go down. That means you have more money and things cost less. Stagflation is the opposite, decrease in aggregate supply. The worst of both worlds. Loss of jobs, loss of income, and price level going up. All right, so make sure you know the difference between employment and unemployment. I know you know what the difference is, but read the question carefully. So I might ask a question, here we go. What event would lead to more unemployment and a higher price level? Okay, so not more employment, but more unemployment and a higher price level. Well, that's the worst of both worlds. That's stagflation. Okay, so that would be something like, you know, higher corporate taxes. Okay, that's why that's the thing that people fear about Joe Biden, is that there's going to be stagflation. Or I may ask, which of the following would lead to higher price levels? And then I might say new technology. No, that would not increase in aggregate supply. How about a stronger dollar? No, because that'd be a decrease in aggregate demand. How about I said consumer business expectations improve? Well, that would be yes, because that'd be an increase in consumption and an increase in aggregate demand. All right, so I'm going to give you these events, and you're going to have to think about them. Think about what's going to happen to price level and real GDP and apply them to the answers. You don't get too far away from this graph in your thinking. And then, for sure, a section on the quiz is going to be, I'm going to have consumption, investment, government spending, net exports, and not a part of GDP, A, B, C, D, and E. I'll give you an event and you tell me which one it is. All right, so if I say I bought a used typewriter on eBay, not a part of GDP. I bought a new townhouse, newly built townhouse in Pebble Beach. Hey, I can dream, right? That would be investment, right? Remember, investment is primarily business purchases, but it also includes new residential, new home purchases by consumers. Consumer purchases make up 70% of our economy. Okay. Investment and government spending about 15, 18 apiece, depending on the year. And net exports, it's important to know that that's a negative number in the US because we have a trade deficit. All right. This is a brief synopsis. I recommend you watching this twice. Know the two names for each event, okay, on the graph. Know what Sigixin means. Know that Sigixin is aggregate demand. If these change, that shifts aggregate demand, aggregate supply, are things related to production, okay? So if there's labor strife and strikes all over the country, that's going to be a negative for aggregate supply. Okay. Net exports, just make sure you know it's exports minus imports, not vice versa. Okay. And when the determinants, the focus is on, the exports. Okay, so the weak dollar is good for exports. Okay? All right, I want you to do well. It's just a quiz. Don't, I'm begging you to care more about your education than grades. And someday you'll know what I mean when I say that. Right now, you don't. Nobody knows when I say that. I said that to some of your parents during the parent conferences, and they're like, how do you care about your education and not care about your grades? Because I want you to love to learn, to eat it up, and be like, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing to be able to learn, to be able to go to school. You know why I'm feeling this way? Because Chicago's like still not letting the kids come back, and it infuriates me. It's wrong. Thank God we're part of the Fenwick community, where we have maintenance people and faculty and administration and parents and students that all work together to bring us together so that we can come back from the snow day. Gonna see you tomorrow.